The laughter echoed through the silent classroom like a whip crack. A Japanese sensei pointed at a Filipino student and smiled, not a kind smile, but the kind that cuts. What happened next did not just change one life. It changed an entire town. And the ending? No one saw it coming. The room was cold. Not the cold of winter, but the cold of silence. 30 students stood in straight lines on polished wood. Their white uniforms were perfect. Their eyes faced forward. In the front of the room stood Sensei Kenji Watanabe. He was 70 years old, but his back was straighter than a sword. His gray hair was cut short like a soldier. His hands were hard as stone from 50 years of martial arts. He had never lost a fight. He had never smiled at a student. Until today. At the back of the last row stood a boy named Ricardo. He was 17 years old. He came from a small fishing village in the Philippines, from a province called Palawan. His father was a fisherman who died when Ricardo was 12. His mother washed clothes for rich families. Ricardo had saved money for 3 years just to afford the plane ticket to Japan. He had no sponsor. No family in Tokyo. Just a dream. He wanted to learn the way of the warrior. He wanted to be strong enough to protect his mother from the men who came to their house at night asking for money they did not have. Sensei Watanabe walked slowly down the rows. His wooden sword, called a bakken, tapped each student on the shoulder. Tap. 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 Each student bowed. Tap. 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 Then he stopped. He stopped right in front of Ricardo. The sensei looked at Ricardo's hands. They were calloused from pulling fishing nets, not from gripping a sword. He looked at Ricardo's feet. They were bare and cracked from walking on hot sand, not from dojo floors. He looked at Ricardo's face. And then he laughed. It was not a loud laugh. It was worse. It was a small, quiet laugh that came from deep in the throat. A laugh that said, "You do not belong here." "What is your name?" the sensei asked in Japanese. Ricardo understood some Japanese, but not all. He had studied alone at night using borrowed books and a broken phone. "Ricardo, sensei," he said. His accent was thick. The other students heard it. 2 of them smiled. One of them coughed to hide a laugh. The sensei tilted his head like a bird looking at a worm. "Ricardo," he repeated, mocking the accent. "You are from Philippines, yes?" "Yes, sensei." "In Philippines, do you have martial arts?" "Yes, sensei. We have arnis." "Stick fighting." The sensei laughed again. This time louder. He turned to the class. "Stick fighting," he said. "They fight with sticks. Like children." A few students laughed openly now. Ricardo felt heat rise from his chest to his neck to his face. But he did not move. He did not speak. He remembered his mother's voice, "Ricardo, when they laugh, you bow. Pride is a heavy bag. Only fools carry it everywhere." Ricardo bowed. His back bent slowly. His head lowered. The sensei watched him bow and then turned away. The class continued. They practiced basic strikes. Forward. Sideways. Upward block. Ricardo had never held a wooden sword before. His movements were clumsy. His feet slipped on the polished floor. Twice his sword flew out of his hand and clattered across the wood. Each time, the sensei stopped the class and pointed. "Look," he said. "The stick fighter cannot even hold a sword." More laughter. But Ricardo did not cry. He did not get angry. He picked up the sword. He bowed. He returned to his position. After class, the students left quickly. They walked in groups, talking and laughing. No one spoke to Ricardo. He sat alone on the wooden steps outside the dojo. The Tokyo air was cold. He pulled his thin jacket tighter. He thought about the money he had spent. The plane ticket. The small room he rented near the train tracks. The noodles he ate twice a day. Was this a mistake? He put his head in his hands. Then he heard footsteps. Someone sat down next to him. It was the other Filipino student. The one who had not laughed. His name was Miguel. He was 22 years old. He had been in Japan for 3 years. He worked in a factory during the day and trained at night. "Don't quit," Miguel said. His voice was quiet. "He laughs at everyone. But especially at us." Ricardo looked up. "Why do you stay?" Miguel shrugged. "Because one day, he will stop laughing. And that day, you will know you have become strong." Miguel reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of cloth. It was a black headband, worn and faded. "This was my father's," Miguel said. "He was a fighter in the Philippines. He taught me arnis before he died. The same sticks the sensei laughed at. But those sticks saved our village once. Remember that." He tied the headband around Ricardo's arm. "Train harder than anyone. Do not ask for respect. Earn it." That night, Ricardo could not sleep. He lay on a thin mattress in a room the size of a closet. Through the window, he could see the lights of Tokyo. A city of millions, and he was alone. He took the headband off his arm and held it to his chest. He thought of his mother. She would be waking up now in the Philippines. She would boil water for coffee. She would look at the photograph of his father on the wall. She would whisper a prayer for her son. Ricardo sat up. He took out a small notebook and a pencil. He wrote, "Day 1. They laughed. I bowed. Tomorrow, I will not drop the sword. The next day, I will not slip. The day after, I will make them stop laughing." He closed the notebook. He did not know it then, but that small black headband would become the most important thing he ever owned. The next morning, Ricardo arrived at the dojo 2 hours early. The doors were locked. He waited in the cold. When the assistant sensei arrived, Ricardo asked if he could clean the floors. The assistant sensei was a young woman named Yuki. She had kind eyes. She handed him a rag. He cleaned every inch of the wooden floor on his hands and knees. He did not complain. He did not ask for thanks. He just cleaned. When Sensei Watanabe arrived, he saw Ricardo kneeling with a wet rag. He said nothing. He walked past. But for just 1 second, his eyes moved. He noticed. For 3 months, this was Ricardo's life. He cleaned before every class. He stayed after every class. He practiced alone in the park at midnight under a single street lamp. He swung the wooden sword until his arms screamed. He did footwork drills until his feet bled. He watched videos on his broken phone. He memorized every stance. Every strike. Every breath. The other students stopped laughing. Not because they respected him, but because they forgot he existed. He was invisible. A ghost in a white uniform. But ghosts can be dangerous. Because no one watches a ghost. And while no one was watching, Ricardo was becoming something else. 6 months passed. Ricardo no longer dropped his sword. His feet no longer slipped. His body had changed. His shoulders were wider. His arms were ropes of muscle. His hands, once soft from fishing nets, were now hard as coconut shells. But Sensei Watanabe still did not look at him. Not really. The sensei would walk past Ricardo during drills like he was a piece of furniture. He would correct the Japanese students. He would correct the Korean student. He would even correct Miguel sometimes. But Ricardo? Nothing. No advice. No criticism. No laugh anymore. Just silence. And silence, Ricardo learned, was worse than laughter. Because silence meant you were forgotten. One night, after cleaning the dojo alone, Ricardo found something. Behind a loose floorboard near the back wall, he discovered a small book. It was old. The pages were yellow and cracked. The cover was leather, worn smooth by many hands. He opened it carefully. Inside were handwritten notes in Japanese. Diagrams of strikes. Drawings of footwork patterns he had never seen. And in the back, a single sentence in English: "The student who trains in secret will one day teach the master." Ricardo's heart pounded. He looked around. No one was there. He slipped the book into his jacket and left quickly. He did not know it then, but that book had belonged to Sensei Watanabe's own teacher. A man named Hiroshi, who had died 20 years ago. And Hiroshi had hidden the book because he believed the dojo had become too proud, too stiff, too afraid of true combat. For the next 3 months, Ricardo trained in complete secret. He did not tell Miguel. He did not tell anyone. Every night from midnight until 3 in the morning, he went to the same park under the same street lamp. But now he had the book. The techniques inside were not beautiful. They were not the clean, polite strikes of the dojo. These were dirty techniques. Close-range elbow strikes. Low kicks to the knees. Finger strikes to the throat. Moves that would make a traditional sensei angry. Moves that were forbidden. Ricardo practiced them again and again. He hit a tree trunk until his knuckles bled. He kicked a concrete wall until his shins were bruised purple. He did not stop. He could not stop. One night, Miguel followed him. Ricardo did not hear the footsteps. He was too focused. He was practicing a move from the book, a spinning back fist followed by a low kick to the calf. He moved like water. Fast. Smooth. Dangerous. When he finished, he heard clapping. Slow clapping. He turned. Miguel stood at the edge of the light. His arms were crossed. His face was unreadable. "Where did you learn that?" Miguel asked. Ricardo said nothing. Miguel walked closer. "That is not dojo training. That is street fighting. That is survival." Ricardo looked at the ground. "I want to survive," he said. Miguel was quiet for a long time. Then he sat down on the grass. "Show me," he said. From that night on, Ricardo and Miguel trained together. They became brothers. Not by blood, but by something stronger, shared pain. Miguel taught Ricardo the old Arnie stick fighting techniques his father had taught him. The footwork. The angles. The way to move in a circle instead of a straight line. Ricardo taught Miguel the secret techniques from the book. The dirty elbows. The throat strikes. The way to end a fight in 3 seconds. They pushed each other. They bled together. They laughed together in the cold Tokyo nights. Miguel would bring rice balls and warm tea. Ricardo would bring bandages and antiseptic. They had no money. They had no family nearby. But they had each other. Then love came. Her name was Amira. She was not Filipino. She was not Japanese. She was from Morocco. She worked at a small cafe near the train station where Ricardo washed dishes. She had long black hair and eyes the color of honey. She noticed Ricardo because he always stayed late to clean the kitchen without being asked. She noticed him because he never complained. She noticed him because when their hands touched while passing a coffee cup, he blushed. One night, she waited for him outside the cafe. You train, yes? She asked. Her accent was soft. You are a fighter? Ricardo did not know what to say. I am a student, he said. She smiled. I have seen you from my window. The park at night. You move like water. Ricardo's heart raced. No one had ever called him beautiful before. No one had ever looked at him like she did. They started meeting before his midnight training. Just 15 minutes. Just to talk. She told him about Morocco. About the mountains and the sea. About her father who was sick and her mother who worked 2 jobs. She told him she came to Japan because it was the only place that gave her a scholarship. She was studying to be a nurse. Ricardo told her about Palawan. About the fishing boats and the green water. About his father drowning in a storm. About his mother crying alone at night. He told her about the sensei who laughed. About the secret book. About his dream. She listened. She did not laugh. She put her hand on his. You will win, she said. I know it. For the first time in his life, Ricardo believed someone. But tragedy was watching. It always watches. One night, Ricardo arrived at the park late. Miguel was not there. That was strange. Miguel was never late. Ricardo waited 15 minutes. Then 30. Then he walked to Miguel's apartment. The door was open. Inside, everything was destroyed. Chairs broken. Drawers pulled out. Clothes everywhere. And on the floor, face down, was Miguel. His body was still. Ricardo fell to his knees. He turned Miguel over. His friend's face was bruised beyond recognition. His eyes were closed. But his chest was moving. He was alive. Barely. Miguel, Ricardo whispered. Who did this? Miguel's lips moved. No sound came out. He tried again. Dojo, he whispered. The sensei. He found out about the book. Sensei Watanabe had discovered the loose floorboard. He had found the book missing. He had watched Ricardo for weeks. Then he sent 3 of his senior students to teach Miguel a lesson. To send a message. The message was clear: leave Tokyo. Go back to the Philippines. Or die. Ricardo carried Miguel to the hospital. Amira met them at the emergency door. She was crying. She worked as a nursing assistant there. She took Miguel inside. She held Ricardo's hand as the doctors worked. 3 hours later, the doctor came out. Miguel would live. But he would never walk again. His spine was broken in 2 places. Ricardo sat in the plastic chair outside the ICU. He did not cry. He did not speak. He just sat. And in his mind, something cold and hard grew. It was not anger. It was something worse. It was purpose. The next morning, Ricardo walked to the dojo. He did not run. He did not rush. He walked slowly, calmly, like a man going to work. The sun was rising over Tokyo. Pink and orange light painted the buildings. He entered the dojo. The morning class had not started yet. Only Sensei Watanabe was there, sitting in meditation on the raised platform. He did not open his eyes. You came back, the sensei said. I knew you would. Ricardo stood in the center of the floor. He untied the black headband from his arm. Miguel's father's headband. He folded it carefully and placed it on the floor. Sensei, Ricardo said. His voice was steady. I challenge you. The sensei opened his eyes. For the first time in a year, he really looked at Ricardo. And for the first time, his face showed something other than contempt. It showed respect. You will die, the sensei said. Maybe, Ricardo answered. But I will not bow. The dojo filled quickly. Word spread like fire in dry grass. A Filipino student had challenged the great Sensei Watanabe. Students came. Former students came. Neighbors came. Even the old woman who sold tea across the street came. Everyone wanted to see the fight. But no one expected Ricardo to win. They came to see him lose. They came to see the sensei teach one final lesson. Ricardo stood in the center of the floor. His bare feet felt every grain of wood. He wore his white gi, clean and pressed. On his left arm, he had tied a new piece of cloth. Not the black headband. That still lay on the floor. This was a strip of white bandage that Amira had given him from the hospital. She had kissed it and whispered, "My father always said, the heart of a lion beats in the chest of the poor." Ricardo touched the bandage once. Then he looked up. Sensei Watanabe stepped down from the platform. He wore a black gi, the color of a master. In his right hand, he held a real wooden sword, heavier than the practice ones. In his left hand, he held nothing. His feet moved slowly, deliberately. He stopped 3 meters from Ricardo. "You have 1 minute to change your mind," the sensei said. His voice was loud so everyone could hear. "I will not kill you. But I will break you. And you will crawl out of this dojo on your hands and knees." Ricardo did not answer with words. He raised his empty hands. No sword. No weapon. Just his fingers. The crowd murmured. Was he insane? The sensei's eyes narrowed. "You refuse a weapon?" "I have my hands," Ricardo said. "My father had no weapon when the storm took his boat. My mother had no weapon when the men came to our door. Miguel had no weapon when your students broke his back. I am done with weapons." The sensei's face hardened. He attacked. The first strike came fast. Too fast for most eyes. The wooden sword sliced through the air toward Ricardo's skull. A killing blow. Ricardo did not block. He moved. His body dropped low, lower than the book had taught, lower than any dojo stance. His knees bent until his thighs were parallel to the floor. The sword passed over his head, missing by a centimeter. He felt the wind of it. Then he struck. Not with his fist. With his palm. He drove the heel of his right hand into the sensei's exposed ribs. Crack. The sound was small but sharp. The sensei gasped. His feet stumbled. The crowd went silent. No one had ever seen the sensei stumble. Ever. The sensei recovered quickly. He was not a master for nothing. He spun and brought the sword down in a diagonal slash. Ricardo raised his left arm to block. The sword hit his forearm. Pain exploded like fire. He heard his own bone crack. But he did not cry out. He did not fall. Instead, he stepped forward into the pain. He stepped inside the sensei's guard. His injured arm grabbed the sensei's wrist. His right elbow shot upward and crashed into the sensei's jaw. Teeth clacked. Blood appeared on the sensei's lip. The crowd gasped again. Ricardo did not stop. He swept his right leg low, hooking the sensei's ankle. The old man fell. He hit the wooden floor with a heavy thud. The sword clattered away. Ricardo stood over him. His left arm hung useless at his side, the bone visibly bent. But he stood. "Get up," Ricardo said. His voice was quiet but everyone heard it. "Get up, Sensei." The old man tried to rise. He pushed himself up on one elbow. But his ankle was twisted. His jaw throbbed. He fell back down. He tried again. He could not stand. For the first time in 50 years, Kenji Watanabe could not stand. He looked up at Ricardo. His eyes were no longer cold. They were wet. Not with pain. With something else. Something he had not felt in decades. Humility. "I was wrong," the sensei whispered. No one heard him except Ricardo. "Say it louder," Ricardo said. The sensei swallowed. Blood dripped from his lip onto his black gi. "I was wrong," he shouted. His voice cracked. "I laughed at you. I mocked your people. I sent my students to hurt your friend. I was wrong. I am ashamed." Ricardo looked at the sensei for a long time. Then he looked at the crowd. He saw the young Japanese man who had laughed at him on the first day. That man was crying. He saw the assistant sensei Yuki. She was smiling through tears. He saw the old tea woman. She was nodding slowly. Then Ricardo did something no one expected. He knelt down. He reached out his good hand. He helped Sensei Watanabe to his feet. The old man swayed but stood. Ricardo picked up the wooden sword from the floor. He held it out to the sensei. "Teach me," Ricardo said. "Not how to fight. How to forgive." The sensei stared at the sword. His hands shook. He took the sword. Then he bowed. Not a small bow. A deep bow. A bow from the waist. A bow of apology. A bow of respect. But the story does not end there. Because remember, I promised you an unbelievable ending. Here it is. 3 days later, Ricardo visited Miguel in the hospital. Miguel was awake now. He could not walk, but he could talk. He was sitting up in bed, eating soup that Amira had brought. When Ricardo walked in, Miguel smiled. "I heard you broke his ribs and his pride," Miguel said. "You also broke your arm, idiot." Ricardo laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. "Worth it," he said. Then Ricardo sat on the edge of the bed. He took something from his pocket. It was the old leather book. The one that started everything. He handed it to Miguel. "This is yours now," Ricardo said. "You found it," Miguel said. "No," Ricardo said. "We found it. And we will take it back to the Philippines. We will build our own dojo. Not for pride. For the kids who get laughed at. For the fishermen's sons. For the washerwomen's daughters." Miguel's eyes filled with tears. He nodded. 2 months later, Ricardo and Amira flew back to the Philippines. They pushed Miguel's wheelchair through the Manila airport. Then they took a bus. Then a jeepney. Then a boat. They arrived in Ricardo's village in Palawan. The same village where his father had died. The same village where his mother had washed clothes for rich families. His mother was waiting on the shore. She was old now. Her hands were rough. Her hair was gray. But when she saw Ricardo, she ran into the water. She did not care about her dress. She did not care who was watching. She held her son and she cried. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you I would," Ricardo said. Then he pointed to Miguel in the wheelchair. "This is my brother." He pointed to Amira. "This is my heart." And he pointed to the empty beach behind them. "And this is where we will build the dojo." They built it. With their own hands. Ricardo carried wood from the forest. Amira mixed cement. Miguel designed the layout from his wheelchair. The villagers helped. Even the children helped. They built a small dojo. Not fancy. Not big. But strong. On the front wall, Ricardo painted 2 words in large letters, "Laughter Dojo." When people asked why, Ricardo said, "Because everyone who laughs at you is giving you a gift." They are telling you that you have something to prove. And proving them wrong is the sweetest victory of all. And Sensei Watanabe? He came to visit 1 year later. He walked through the village in his black gi. The children were afraid of him at first. But then he knelt down. He bowed to them. He asked to teach a class. Ricardo let him. The old sensei taught the Filipino children the same traditional forms he had taught in Tokyo. But at the end of the class, he bowed to the children. And the children bowed back. And for the first time in his life, Kenji Watanabe cried. He cried because he had spent 50 years building walls. And Ricardo had spent 1 year building bridges. You are the real sensei, Watanabe said to Ricardo. Ricardo shook his head. No, he said. I am just a fisherman's son who refused to bow forever.